Imagine a space for South Asian women where stories are not just told, but actually felt. This is Rue, Rising Over Obstacles and Healing, brought to you by Jyoti and Monica, two friends who set out to carve a little space and make a difference by sharing stories and fostering healing and strength within our community. We invite you to listen and reflect, finding your own path one story at a time. And just for sticking around, there's a golden biscuit at the end of each episode. So about 10 years ago, I'm sitting in my living room on a rocking chair. I've got a little infant in my arms, and I look deranged. My hair is a mess. I'm crying. Tears are just coming down, and I'm trying to breastfeed this baby. But it's not happening. I mean, it's happening. He's drinking a little bit, but it's not without pain. He couldn't latch properly. So I was in immense pain as I'm trying to breastfeed this baby. And I'm trying to conjure up all these feelings of, it's my baby and I'm happy and I've got this. But the tears are totally giving it away. And my husband at that point looks at me and goes, "This is it. We're done with this," because it's about a week and a half of this that's been going on, and every feeding looks like this. And he goes to me, "I'm going out to go buy formula." Now, I was so hopeful that I was going to be able to breastfeed this baby that I had not even bought formula. Just hearing from family and friends, and especially the older women in the family, of how easy it was to breastfeed. It's like second nature. All women breastfed their babies. I had this strong responsibility on my shoulders, I guess you can say, and the desire to want to really breastfeed my baby. However, here we were. I'm crying, I'm deranged, and I'm about to give up at this point. And as soon as my husband grabs his car keys and is about to walk out the door, that I go, you know what? There is one other option that I have not exercised yet. So let me do this. And which was actually to use a nipple shield, which makes it much easier for babies to latch on. I had always known this. However, a lot of people will tell you, "Oh, don't use this. Don't use the shield. It's not good for the baby. You want them to latch on to your, breast naturally." And anyway, my last resort, I tried it and it worked. And literally all of the pain went away. And here I was able to breastfeed the baby. Now, where did the strong urge come from that I had to breastfeed? It came from all the women always talking about this. And it was interesting. Once I got to this point and I related this story to my mom, she goes to me, Why did you go through this? And I'm like, "Because you breastfed me for a year, 2 years, whatever. And, I thought I had to do the same thing." And she goes to me, "Honey," well, in Punjabi, she goes, "Main to tenu ek mahine dudh piyaya si." 1 month. And I'm like, "Huh? 1 month? You fed me for just 1 month?" And she goes, "Yeah." Because she wanted to go to a mela, a carnival, with my dad, and she left me with my grandmother. And they ended up going away for an entire day. And when it came time for feeding, my grandma just gave me regular milk. And I did fine with it. And then my mom comes back and my grandma decided that I no longer needed my mom's milk and that I was fine with regular milk. So all this time I am torturing myself because my mom fed me for a year, 2 years. I'm going to do the same thing, by golly. However, that's not necessarily the case. Long story short, today at Rue, we are going to demystify what happens in the 4th trimester. We are going to talk about what we envision as new moms and what the reality is, because it's very, very seldomly discussed. And we have these expectations that sometimes are internal, sometimes are external, that we feel pressured to be able to be a certain way, raise the baby a certain way, feed the baby a certain way. Well, you know what? the heck with all of that. We're going to discuss it openly and we're going to normalize this. So welcome to the show. And today it's just Monica and I. So Monica, we're both moms.
Yeah.
And we have tons of stories to share. Tell me what your journey was like with breastfeeding.
It was definitely an eye-opener and a learning experience. You know, I always thought I knew everything. Growing up, I got to experience a lot of my cousins being born. Mm-hmm. I was a bit older than them, so I saw nursing. I also saw them being formula fed.
Okay.
So I just, I was just like, you feed the baby. Like, there's nothing to it, right? Then here I am. I gave birth, and after my delivery, the nurses ask, oh, how would you like to choose to feed your child? And I just naturally said breastfed. Okay. Because I had a C-section, I was in the hospital, I believe, for 3 days. Mm-hmm. And on the third day, or is it the fourth day that I'm being discharged, the nurse comes to me and she says, so your son has lost 1 pound and 5 ounces. That's much more than the 10% that is normal for a child to lose after delivery. Mm-hmm. You're going to have to really just give him formula now. You can go to a lactation consultant, figure out how to breastfeed. But at this point, he needs something in him right now because he's lost. And they waited until I was being discharged. So my son was born Tuesday night and I was discharged Friday afternoon.
Okay.
And this is when they decided to tell me.
Wow.
Yeah. And the thing is, when I look back, I remember the 2 nights prior to that, my son would cry so much. Like he was inconsolable. Like there was nothing we could do. And I would put him on my breast. I would latch because I was just thinking like, this child needs to be fed. Babies need to be fed every hour and a half when they're that young. He would calm down, but then after a while he'd sleep for a little bit, then he'd cry again. Mm. And we just thought that was his temperament. Not knowing, putting the 2 and 2 together, that he was unfed, he was severely dehydrated. Mm-hmm. And I was, I wasn't even disappointed in the nurses as much as I was with myself of not knowing. Because had I told them, he can bottle feed or formula, they would have done it on their own. Which is one thing I didn't know, that hospitals that are pro breastfeed, they don't encourage you. Once you've said breastfed, that they'll be like, give the bottle. I can understand their point of view that they're not allowed to on their own, but they won't even come and tell you like, oh, your child, they weigh them every day, if not even probably more so, to see if they're gaining weight. And they just never did. I don't know if it was the same scenario with everyone at that hospital, but that's the staff that I had.
Yeah. So see, that's where I think it's so interesting that you and I gave birth at the same hospital. Yeah. And only a year apart. I think I gave birth like a year before you did. And my experience was different. Like they were definitely, you could tell they're very pro breastfeeding. Yes. But they would keep me posted. Like they told me, okay, the baby is losing some weight. Yeah. It's normal. I think he was just within that normal range. He hadn't really lost more than that. Yeah. But they did tell me, like, you have to go to the pediatrician. He needs to, at this point, stabilize and start gaining weight. Yeah. And the way it's going, he was losing weight. So they told me, just really make sure that you take care of this. Yeah. So it wasn't like, in your case, it seems like they just almost like forgot to mention anything to you till the day you were getting discharged.
So the day I was getting discharged, and by then it was evening time. Yeah. And I hadn't bought bottles, I think, because it's just something that hadn't come to my mind. So we get home, I tell my husband, get this formula, get these bottles. But in my back of my mind, I'm still like, I want to nurse. So I remember looking up how to increase your milk supply.
Oh, wow.
And one of the first things that came up was oatmeal.
Oh, yes. Oatmeal is very good.
Yeah. As much as I am of a foodie, I won't eat something just because if I can tell from the texture or the way it looks. Okay. So I'd never had oatmeal in my life. I was like, I don't eat that. Yeah. First thing I told my mom was, tomorrow morning, you're making me oatmeal for breakfast.
Things we do as mamas.
The things we do as moms, right? Yeah. And there were natural remedies of fenugreek seeds.
Yes. Mete.
Mete. And what we make as a postpartum energy food, like banjiri. Yes. So things with high fats, healthy fats, would help you produce milk. But also, I think it was just time. Like for me, so naturally, eventually I did get to the point where I was able to produce a lot of milk, right? I didn't have to pump after my child would drink. But, I worked hard on it to get to that point. So I'd always make sure I nursed him first. then I gave him the bottle.
Okay.
And I was lucky enough that my best friend had delivered her son. This was her second child 3 days before me.
Oh, wow.
So we were in the same boat. She was also like, don't worry, Mon, I'm not having much milk to produce, but this is what I'm doing. I'm supplementing with formula. So it was okay with that. And my mom had done that with my brother because even though she was producing, he just didn't like it.
Okay.
So she had to give him the bottle.
Yeah.
So that stigma wasn't there, but I still had this mental load of like, you need to breastfeed, you need to nurse because it's natural. It's the best for the baby. Breast is best. That's what we're fed, right?
Yeah.
But I did get to that. But one of the other hurdles I had, I think now when I look back is as to why I wasn't able to, is I had this very rare condition, which it was happening during my pregnancy, but I was ignoring it. When you become pregnant, your breast tissue expands. The nerves or the valves for the milk ducts, those also expand. So what so happened for me was it started expanding into my right armpit.
Oh my gosh.
My underarms. So I was forming breast tissue there. And I was also gaining a lot of weight with my son because here I am pregnant with my best friend. I'm at work. We're just eating nonstop because I'm like, why not? It's an excuse. So I thought it was partially that. My mom and my mother-in-law, they were noticing it. And it was summer. They would be like, what's that? And I would just hide. I'm like, nothing. And I didn't realize it was an issue until my second or third day I was in the hospital. The doctor comes and I go to her. I'm like, I can't put my arm down. Like it hurts. It's rock hard. And she goes to me, oh, you have accessory breast tissue that's developed there. And what's happening is your milk is
oh my God,
going towards there. Oh. So she's like, this is milk that's hardened.
Yeah.
And you're going to end up developing, I'm forgetting that term at loss. Like, what happens is like when your milk hardens and you can kind of form these cysts in your breast, like you're going to get that. So I had to massage that like probably multiple times throughout the day with warm compress.
Really?
To get rid of that. And that took a month.
Wow.
To, recover from. Like, I feel like that was more painful than my postpartum recovery from my C-section. That was the one thing I used to cry from. Because anyone's ever nursed and they've had their milk ducts clogged or the milk has hardened and it's formed there, you can imagine how hard that pain.
Yes. So I didn't have that issue. The issue I had, and I can relate to that pain. Because again, I thought my biggest hurdle going into pregnancy and whatnot, obviously, we were elated that we're going to have a baby. And I remember still when this thought entered my head and it was like, all of a sudden, I'm like, baby's going to come. I have this baby in my belly. And then I'm like, how is this baby going to come out? Like to me, it was like, that was all consuming, trying to figure out how this baby is now going to come out because
the fear of that. Yeah,
because I cry from like a paper cut, my pain tolerance level is extremely low.
Yeah.
So I was so concerned about that. And you hear so many stories about the birth itself that you don't hear about the part that comes next.
No, you don't.
The fourth trimester, I would like to call it, which is the breastfeeding. And I had given zero thought to that. All of a sudden, here I am trying to breastfeed and the baby's not latching. And I have this pillow that was recommended online because, again, you don't know anything.
No.
So you just, whatever you find available online, that's what you go with. And so I had this pillow that you like buckle on to your waist.
Yeah.
And it keeps the baby in place, but it's like stiff.
Yeah.
So there's only so much maneuvering you can do. And I know, like, for me, like, the baby wasn't latching. Hence, when I started, I mentioned that vivid memory that I have of crying, being in tears, trying to get this baby to latch. And, when they don't feed properly, the milk accumulates. Your breasts are engorged.
Yeah.
And you're just in pain.
So much pain.
So much pain. And I remember like the hot showers would kind of help.
Yeah.
But when you're a new mom, showers are a luxury.
Yeah. They are.
Showers are a luxury, So again, it was this pressure I had. And I remember same thing with the doctor telling me that I had to, because once I followed up care with the pediatrician, my baby was still losing weight and I was given an ultimatum, which was you have to make the decision to either give the baby formula And they sent me home, like, I think with like a packet or something. They were like, you are either going to give the baby formula or you're going to go see a doctor that specializes in lactation and breastfeeding medicine, which, you know, I didn't even know up until that point that was a specialty.
Yeah.
And so I went to the doctor and for some reason, my baby would be perfect when it came to like, I know I went to the doctor, she weighed him, then she had me breastfeed while I was in the office.
Okay.
And then she weighed him again. And based on that, she's like, well, he's getting milk.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Right.
But, you know, it was an anomaly in the office because I'd come home and he wouldn't repeat what he had done.
Oh, my God.
What he had done in the office. And I remember telling her that, oh, you know, I've heard of the nipple shield, which I think really helps. And I forget the reasons she gave me for not using it. I think all these people are big advocates for everything being natural.
Yeah.
So she was kind of like, you know, it's plastic, like don't use it. It's okay. Just he's getting the milk. So just forget it. And I put myself through hell because I listened and I just, you know, a week, almost 2 weeks of me crying out in pain every time I was feeding. And then obviously he wasn't feeding enough.
Yeah.
And then when I would pump, it would hurt even more. Anyway, the best decision I ever made was to use the latch.
Yeah.
Like the nipple latch or whatever, nipple shield, sorry. It's
See, everyone's anatomy is different. Everyone's child is different. Your body is different. Your hormones are different. That's how milk is produced.
Yeah.
Our bodies. What one way may work for someone may not work for the other. So be open. Do what feels comfortable and normal to you. Don't make comments as, well, this is what I did. You shouldn't do that, or this is what you should do.
Yeah. I think it's okay to make comments like, oh, this is what worked for me. Yeah. But then follow
make
it
suggestions.
Up. Yeah. You can make suggestions and then follow it up with, hey, listen, there's no right or wrong way.
Yeah.
There's no set way. Like you said, everyone's different. I think it's great to have suggestions. It's great to be able to try different things. But at the same time, there should just be no pressure.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times when we get those suggestions, they're not really suggestions. They're more like, do this.
Yeah, do this. You're not doing it the right way. Or your way is not the right way. My way is the right way.
Yeah. Or like the harmless comments, like, and we hear this a lot in our society, in our culture, which is like South Asian elderly women will tell you, why is this such a big deal? In my day, breastfeeding was no big deal.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding was like second nature. I don't understand why you girls can't produce milk. You can't.
Yeah.
And again, like we said, it's a hormonal thing. We've already established diet that we have in the Western culture, the mental load we have as working moms, the stress of everyday life, the chemicals we're exposed to, all those play a role in your milk production.
Yeah. And honestly, no one ever spoke about these things openly until our generation, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember a few years back speaking to my dad's aunt, and she was telling me how they were on a trip, they were in a train, and she's like, you know, I took out the bottle, put the formula in, and I gave it to my son. And I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, you know, because we were traveling. I'm like, you had formula then? And I'm like, you had formula back then. Yeah. She's like, she looks at me, she's like, yeah. She's like, maybe I was probably even given formula or something. Who knows? And I'm like, what? She's like, yes. She's like, you know, back in the day, all women couldn't always breastfeed, or she's like, we had to go to work in the farms or go other places. So she's like, what they used to do was they just started giving cow milk or goat's milk, and those that could afford it would buy formula. And she's like, there's always been formula around.
Wow.
You know,
that's interesting because I think I've always just thought that every child born back in the day was just breastfed.
It was breastfed until they were 5 years old, because that's all we heard.
or when I learned, in my case, that my mom only fed you for a month.
You know, and it's this like almost this curtain that's put around things.
Yeah.
To not talk about.
Exactly.
And to show like there's nothing you need to live up to. There's no standard.
Yeah, exactly. I think the important thing to keep in mind is you have to feed the baby. Yeah. Whether that's through breastfeeding or through formula.
Yeah.
Let's just get it out there. Yeah. Let's not like look down on someone who is not breastfeeding. Yeah. Let's not make formula look bad. No. Let's not put any labels on anything. It's just feed your baby.
Yeah.
However that is. And be okay with that. Do not have that guilt or that shame, like, oh, I wasn't able to give my baby my breast milk. Back in like the day, what's that dialogue? You always heard it in Hindi movies, Punjabi movies, "Je maa da dudh peeta." Like, come on, it should just be like dudh peeta. That's it, right? Yeah. But I have to say, once the breastfeeding, you finally get to a level where you feel like, okay, you're set now.
Yeah.
You've figured out a rhythm, like you've got the hang of it. Then there's another surprise, which, I don't know if you had this. It's the postpartum blues. And, it's interesting because each pregnancy is different. Yeah. With the first one, it was this whole breastfeeding issue. And with the second one, by then, I knew how to feed the baby. I knew what to do. I was very comfortable around it. And I think my nurse made a comment. She saw the pillow I brought. And she goes, "This isn't your first baby, is it?" And I was like, "No." She goes, I'm like, "How can you tell?" And she goes, "The pillow." She goes, "It's a dead giveaway." She goes, "This one that you have now," which was the boppy, it's the one that's much more like flexible. And you can move it around any which way. She's like, "Yeah, second time moms usually bring this." And I'm like, okay, Yeah. So I knew like the feeding wasn't an issue, but something that I did not expect. And it's interesting because I didn't feel it with the first baby. Or after the first baby, rather. But with the second one, I was very emotional. Yeah. It's like, when you have that letdown of like hormones and whatnot, I just remember crying over everything. Right. I remember an instance where I was supposed to get panjiri. So I love panjiri. I'm a huge advocate for panjiri. Eat all the panjiri you can. Don't worry about the weight. It comes off. It tastes good, first of all. And it's just so good for your body and for your the milk production and whatnot, right? So I didn't, even though how I like to eat very healthy. Yeah. I did not care at that time. For me, it was like, no, I need to nourish my body. And this has been around for so long. It's worked for so many women. Yeah. So why fight it, right? So I ate that panjiri. Anyway, I used to get panjiri from so my mom-in-law, she would make panjiri. Yeah. My mom would make panjiri. And then my sister-in-law, her mom is like my second mom. Yeah. She said to me that she was going to bring her panjiri. And I'm loving it. I'm like, bring on all the panjiri. Like, I just want panjiri, So she was going to bring panjiri. And she called me and she's like, they lived like a couple of states away. And she's like, something happened, a car broke down or something. And she's like, we're not going to be able to come this weekend. And I started bawling. Oh. Like, I didn't tell her. I could barely understand it myself, but I'm just bawling. And I'm like, I'm not going to have this panjiri now, Yeah. And my husband's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, you don't understand. And I'm just crying. Yeah. And then my son, the older one at this point, had just started school. And, we're fortunate to be in an area that's so multicultural, having grown up in Seattle, where back then there weren't as many Indians around. My son's school was celebrating Diwali. And it was such a big thing for me. It was like, oh my gosh, like they're celebrating Diwali. Yeah. When I was growing up, people didn't know what Diwali was, right? I wanted my husband, I couldn't leave the baby alone. He had just been born. Yeah. I wanted my husband to take our son to this festival. Yeah. And he didn't go. And it was like, for me, all hell broke loose. Yeah. Like, it was like the worst thing you could have done. And, I got in this fight with him and I'm just like crying and I couldn't control my tears. Yeah. Honestly, it was like,
your emotions are very heightened.
Yeah. Every little thing, I would it was like this sense of doom and depression. And like, I would just feel like there's no end in sight. And all these things were like catastrophic for me. Right. And one day my husband goes to me. He's like, I don't know what's going on with you. Nothing is good enough for you. Like, do you want me to just get you a one-way ticket to Seattle? Yeah. And I'm like, do it. Yeah. I'm like, yes, do it. Yeah. I've had it. Yeah. I'm done. Right. Yeah. And he's like, I just don't understand, and it's like hard to get through to you. And I'm like, I don't know. I still remember. I'm like,
you yourself didn't even know.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, you're the doctor.
Yeah.
Figure it out. I don't know what's going on with me.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I locked myself in the, in the room, and I'm just like sad and crying. And there's a knock on my door like an hour later. And he's like, honey, do you want to go for a drive and maybe get some like dessert and coffee?
Yeah.
And I'm like, huh? Like just an hour ago, you were buying me a one-way ticket to Seattle. And now what happened?
Yeah.
And he goes, so, I looked it up and you have the textbook definition of postpartum blues.
Yeah.
And
even as a doctor, he had to be reminded or learn about this.
Exactly. Yeah. Because even to him, it was like I was being so irate and so irrational and I wasn't understanding it myself. But, that's all it took. It took a little understanding on his part and to just give me that time. And that
the fact that he wanted to help and to figure out, wait, what's going on, instead of just being, he could have just labeled like, oh, she's wrong. Like, I don't know what's up with her. Like, why should I?
Yeah. Or he could have booked me that ticket and I would have been in Seattle and we wouldn't be sitting here right now. But like, even for someone as patient as he is, my behavior kind of drove him to that point, right? So, it's these things that we don't account for that I think if you see your friend is going through this, just be there. Yeah. Right? Just give a distraction.
Yeah, it's not a choice to be this hormonal. Like things, your body's trying to regulate itself again. It just went through so much. Yeah. Especially with your second pregnancy, I feel like it's the second time around. Yeah. So maybe that's why, same thing. First one, I was great. I was fine. Anything could happen. I was just happy. And I think the other thing too is it's the pressure of having the second child, because the first one doesn't make it any better. They're still a baby. They're thinking like, why is this human here now? Yeah. Like, because I remember for me, it was like my son not understanding like, okay, why is my sister taking up my mom's time? Yeah. Why isn't my mom able to get out of bed? Why can't my mom do everything for me? And what I didn't like was a lot of people didn't understand that he was still a kid. Yeah. And then the way that, others would react to him being that way would affect me. And that was really hard. And I was also not able to give my 100% to my daughter. So sometimes I would just sit there and cry and be upset. Like, there's so many things I'm not doing with this child that I did with the first one. And so many things. It's very different the second time around. You hear it, how hard it is, but you don't really realize until you go through it.
Yeah. I had read somewhere that when you are about to go give birth to your second child, take your first one and give that child a hug. Yeah. Because that's the last time that child is going to feel like a baby to you. Yeah. When you come back with the second baby, this child is no longer going to be the baby. Yeah. And you're automatically going to start treating this child as older,
Completely. And like, I look back and when I do like, you look at pictures and videos and I'm like, he was a baby. And I had such high expectations. Given my son's always been a bit more on the mature side, but still he was 2.5. Okay. When my daughter was born. So he was young. Actually, it's so funny. I recently saw a video of when it's him and your son. Yeah. Like he came to visit my daughter and they're both little babies. Yeah. And they don't know what to do. So they're like jumping while she's there on the bed, and they're just squeezing her so hard. Yeah. Stuff. But like when I go back to that time, I remember as a parent thinking, oh, they're so much older because they were 2.5, they're 3.5, they knew. But then when you look at the videos, you're like, they knew nothing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even now, sometimes I catch myself, having much like higher expectations
for the older ones.
For the older one. And then just almost like, even though the little one is not so little anymore, you just still have like so much more patience.
You baby them.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? I think at the end of the day, what we really need is just grace for each other, right? We need to be able to share our experiences and to know that there's no right or wrong way to mother a child, right? We shouldn't have any expectations any sort of connotations, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I think it should just go with the flow, pay attention to your mental health.
Yeah.
Because your mental health does take a toll.
It really does. Yeah.
I think a lot of times we downplay it. I'm not sure if you remember, but we had made plans to go see a movie. I think it was Bajirao Mastani.
Okay, I remember seeing it.
But I wasn't with you guys.
You weren't with us, huh?
Yes. So we had bought tickets. You guys were going to pick me up.
Yep.
And we were going to go see this movie.
Okay.
And that was the first time I was going to be able to go out after having had my first child, right? And for some reason, he picked that day to just cry all day.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I think when it came time, and I don't know how these babies know, but I think like he just knew, like my mama's going to go out.
Yeah, she's going to go. She's getting ready. Something's off.
But it was like he was fine throughout the day, but then like when it came that time, he was just inconsolable. He just kept crying and we didn't know what was going on with him, and I had to bail on you guys. I had to cancel. And I remember like here I am, I'm trying to calm him down, but I'm crying.
You're crying
because I'm like, I wanted to go see this movie, and I'm just like, you know, like it's just one of those things where you're trying to console the baby, but then you need consoling yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's where your life partner should come into play.
Yeah.
And if there are any men listening to this podcast, listening to this episode, your partner, the mother, needs time to be able to just go out, have a cup of coffee with friends, go see a movie. It does wonders for your health.
Yes.
You know, and I don't think it's selfish when you do take care of your mental health. When you say that, listen, I need a break, I need to go for a walk, or I need to go take a long bath, or I'm going with friends to go see a movie.
Yeah.
Or if you're a girl listening to this, and if you're not a mom, or if you've been a mom before, new moms that are in your life, just do this for them. Just go over and just say, listen, I got this baby. You go do something, whatever you want to do.
Right, exactly.
You know?
Even if it's just watching an episode on a TV. I remember for the longest, I wouldn't have time or make time to watch TV. Yeah. You know, it's like the little things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think your life doesn't stop, you know, just because you've had a baby. Yeah, it's important. Take care of the baby. But at the same time, like, take care of yourself. A point that you had made earlier, which I completely didn't understand either, was that you have the baby and the focus automatically shifts to the baby and being the perfect mother.
Yeah.
Whether it's through, you know, cultural norms or expectations or whatnot, then I feel like a lot of us try to be that perfect mother. Yeah. Trying to stay on top of everything. But it's okay if you don't. It's okay if your house is messy. Yeah. It's okay if things aren't put away the way they should. All those things, it's fine. As long as you are enjoying motherhood, your child is laughing, giggling, that's it.
For your child, the perfect mother is you. Yeah. That's it.
Exactly. No matter how you are as a mom.
As a mom.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that is true, actually, when you say that. Yeah. So I would say we should give our audience a golden biscuit, which, what do you say today's golden biscuit would be? So
I don't know if the golden biscuit, but one thing I do know, I always advocate whenever I find out one of my friends or family members is expecting, I always say, please, just because, I don't know, maybe my situation was so traumatic, that be okay with feeding your child both ways. You know, tell the hospital, I want to breastfeed, but I'm also open to formula. So provide the bottle whenever needed. The other thing I did with my daughter when she was born was I asked the nurses to keep her overnight during the first night, because that also helped me sleep. And I know she was being fed when she was there.
Oh, that's smart.
You know, so like they would bring her early in the morning, about 5 a.m. or 6. And then I would nurse her then, and then throughout the day as well.
You know what I did? What did you do? I'm just reminded of this the first time. Yeah. So my husband and I are both there, and it's like nighttime. Yeah. and neither one of us has cared for a baby. And I sent my husband home, and I'm like, you go home and you bring mom, my mom-in-law. I was like, I need her because she's raised kids. So she knows what to do and what not to do. And we're both inexperienced here. So bring mom over.
But that's good. Yeah. You didn't put it on your shoulders, right? You knew. Yeah. You asked for help and you did it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm blessed that I have a great family, great in-laws, you know, and she came and she took over and it was nice to have that. Yeah. And for me, I think I was also just worried about the baby. So I'm like, I am now trusted to keep this baby alive and to feed the baby and all this, and I have no experience. Right. So again, it's, I think my golden biscuit that I would like to give to our listeners is that ask for help. It's okay.
Right.
You don't have to do it all alone. You're not responsible for everything. You're not being selfish. It's necessary. And just whoever you trust, that's there for you, ask for help.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So, there are a lot of topics that we can cover under the umbrella of life after birth. I'd still like to talk about how I finally learned to accept my body, but maybe we can leave that for another day, how I finally learned to love my little pooch I have.
We all have.
It used to bother me and it doesn't anymore. It's okay. It's who I am, But I think for now, the main focus that we wanted was on breastfeeding and the mental health. And we'll be back again with probably another topic related to this. And we look to you as our audience, our listeners, to provide us with some feedback and share your experience, share your journey after the baby, and give us feedback and let us know what you'd like to hear more about.
Yeah.
We're more than happy to just sit here and talk and honestly have conversations that are maybe not normal and make them normal.
Yeah.
Because this is a safe space for women, for us to really uplift one another and to be there for one another. On that note, we will be back again next week. Thank you for listening to Rue. We appreciate you joining us as we cultivate a community of strong, empowered women, one story at a time. If you or someone you know has a story you'd like to share, please contact us at rudaraz@gmail.com. That's ROOHDARAAZ@gmail.com. Also, do us a favor and please share this podcast with your sisters, your mom, your friends, aunties, your eyebrow lady, like any lady you know. You get the idea. Till next time, kush raho, be well.